Hey guys, how's it going? So, final stretch of the musical journey, and strap in because this might be a long one. Couple of housekeeping items before I go on. In the last video, I neglected to mention the name of the band that I had joined. It was Planet Rock. You probably figured it out by the title of the video, but I never mentioned the name. So it was Planet Rock. And the other thing is, because I was wearing my Lucid Flight shirt, I mentioned that they were playing a show with Infamous Memories EP release show, which I said was at Club Underground, but it's not actually a Club Underground. It's at Lee's Liquor Lounge on February 18th, whatever that Sunday is. February 18th at Lee's Liquor Lounge, not Club Underground. So, okay, so this is the last 4 years or so. Yeah, about 4 years, because probably right around this time, 2014, that I started looking at Craigslist band ads and whatnot. So yeah, so it's the last 4 years, which have been kind of packed, kind of dense, which is why I say this one might be a little bit longer. Anyway, so I think we left off. I had seen an ad on Craigslist, and it's probably close to mid-February, I think. Saw this ad on Craigslist looking for a drummer. I think they were looking for a drummer and a guitar player, possibly. Metal cover band, really, really long ad, really, really detailed. All the stuff they wanted, all the stuff they didn't want, all the obvious stuff. They wanted someone who was cool and was good and, knew their shit and had it all together and, wasn't a flake. And no, egos, no druggies, no whatever. And then they listed, did they have song? No, I don't think they had a song list on there. And I'm like, because, it had been a couple of years since I played. And as I said in the previous couple of years, I tried to get something together myself. That did not work. So I was like, okay. So I answered the ad, just kind of saying, haven't played in a while, but, this ad definitely piques my interest, and, what have you got to say, and blah, blah, blah. And so, answered back, bass player who went by Pico, Darren Gordon is his name. Good guy, good bass player, no qualms. But his stage name, I guess, nickname was Pico, so he's the one that contacted me. So, had a little exchange. They sent me a song list, and it was really, really diverse stuff. I remember it was everything from like Dio to Tool to I don't even know on that list. I don't remember exactly what was on that audition list, but it was rather extensive and rather diverse. So we set up an audition. They had a rehearsal space over Northeast. So I set up an audition. My friend Deirdre drove me over there with all my gear, or most of my gear. Went in there, and upon I texted Pico, so he met me outside, and I think Jerry, the guitar player, came with to kind of, help out or whatever. And the couple things that struck me upon walking in that room was they were impressed, first of all, that I had cases for my drums, because apparently the guy that came in before didn't have cases, didn't have a stool, like sat on like a folding chair or something. So the fact that I had somewhat professional gear impressed them. And the fact that it wasn't just Pico and Jerry and Cam the singer in the room, it was also all three of their wives and Cam's young child, which I'd never really experienced before, so that was a little odd. I found that a little odd, but got everything set up and chatting as you go. And, set up and played some stuff. Played for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes maybe. And at the end of it, they kind of did a little huddle and offered me the position. And cool thing about that is that it was February 22nd, 2014, which was my 40th birthday. So that was cool. That was a good way to spend my birthday, was jamming and joining a band. So, and I had to stress most of my gear because I'd left behind, what did I leave behind? Like my 8-inch tom and maybe a cymbal stand and a couple of cymbals or whatever. I mean, just minimal stuff. But I wanted to bring it all because that's what you do. And so the next week, there was practice, and I bussed over there, and I remember it being like typical Minnesota late February. It was like 2 degrees out or something. It was, incredibly cold and just freezing on the way there. So that's, my second kind of memory about joining this band, who was named SMUJ'D, SMUJ''D. And yes, every time I said it to someone, I had to spell it because that's what you do. But that was the name that was there, and we were like, okay, cool, whatever it is, it is. So, started working, and everything seemed really good, and I made fast friends with everybody. The guitar player Jerry, especially, because he used to give me rides home after practice, so we bonded fairly quickly. And going along, we eventually worked up a repertoire of about 35, 40 songs, something like that. Somewhere along the line, we were still looking for a second guitar player, and we auditioned a couple people. I'm trying to think, because there were 2 times we auditioned guitar players, and I'm trying to think. Okay, that came later. Sorry, my thing. So the guy we auditioned and eventually hired, in as much as you can hire someone into a band that isn't making any money, was a gentleman by the name of Doug Lewis. And this was his, I believe, second time ever playing in a band. And the other one was just kind of a fill-in, but he had been playing guitar for years. So I found that interesting. Doug, good guy, good guitar player, solid. So we did that, got Doug, got more tight. And then eventually, I think it was probably, trying to think when the first gig was. It was during the summer, but I don't remember if it was that summer, if it was the following summer. Must have been that summer, like late that summer. Our first official show as SMUJ'D was at Smokey's, which is a barbecue place in don't remember the town. I'll look it up quick. But it's right by Cam's house, like literally walking distance from Cam's house, Cam the singer. So he booked it, and it was kind of funky because him and his wife would do this thing every year and I don't remember what they called it. I honestly don't remember what they called it, but it was because they lived right on like a lake or river or something. So everybody would get together and drink and float on the tubes on the lake or the river, whatever it was. And then at night they'd go over to Smokies and have some barbecue and do all that stuff. And this year was the same, except we were playing that night. East Bethel, that's where it is. Couldn't have to look it up. East Bethel, Minnesota, which, if you would have asked me where East Bethel was 4 years ago, I would have said, I have no fucking idea. But I'm learning a lot of new places, and have learned where a lot of new places are in the last couple of years. So that's probably good. So we get there, and not a bad. I mean, sizable joint. Good sized stage. It has like the wood railing in front, which is always kind of weird, but whatever it is, it is. And got set up, and place is packed because they're still eating dinner. So when we start our first set at 8 o'clock, 8:30, dinner crowd is still there. And I believe, if I remember correctly, we came out strong and loud and obnoxious, like a good metal band should be. And the crowd difference between the first set and the second set was, oh my god, because everybody quickly finished their dinner and ran for the frickin' hills. So second set starts, and of the, maybe 50 people, 60 people, whatever, that were in there before, there's maybe 10 people left, if that. Most of them being friends of the band. So that was not the best experience. And then, so everybody we had planned to camp, camp meaning sleep in a tent, at Cam's house, me and Jerry and my friend Bree, who I convinced to run sound for us because she used to be have a live sound company called Sound Bandits, and she had access to gear, and I was like, hey, you run sound, want to run sound for my band? She's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, that's okay, and then she's like, oh, I'll do it, whatever. So she actually ran sound for our first 2 shows, and neither of them were very good. Not her fault, it was just circumstance. But me and Jerry and Bree were supposed to sleep in a tent, and we had set up the tent and everything, got everything set up, and then by the time we were done, Jerry was just like, do you want to just go back to my place, because he lives in Blaine area somewhere, which apparently is not far, and crash on the couch in the basement. And we were like, okay, that sounds a lot better than sleeping in a tent. So we did that, went back up next day to pack up the gear and get everything, and because at the end of the show, we were done, and I remember Cam just kind of disappearing. Don't know where he went. Okay, cool, whatever. He's a singer, he can do that. His hometown, where he lives, whatever. And so, came out the next day, still no Cam. We're like, okay. Looked down at his area on stage where his mic is, and he had left his sunglasses and his cell phone, and I don't remember what else, maybe his keys, stuff that you'd usually take in a normal state of mind, he had left. We were like, okay, well, we should probably get those back to him. So we packed, loaded everything up and did all that, and, drove up to Cam's house, and it was decided that I would just run in, because I was in the passenger seat of the truck. I would just take the stuff and run in, and got up there and knocked on the door. Nobody answered. I tried the door. It was open. And there's nobody awake. The dog's kind of wandering around. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. Drop everything on the kitchen table and close the door and get out of there. So that was the first show. And so we're like, okay, maybe this guy maybe has some issues, Cam. We're like, it's okay, whatever, he's, singer, whatever. And now we get to the second gig, which really is not a fun story. And Cam, if you watch this, I'm sorry, but I have to tell it. Some friends of Jerry's, I believe, used to hold this event every year called Wolf Stock. Our last name was Wolf. And Jerry had played it in previous bands in the past, and it was always a good time, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, yeah, so why don't you play it? Yeah. And it was like, late August or something. And the kicker was, or the big draw was, at the end of the night, Friday, Saturday night, 2-day event, or 3-day event. Saturday night is a professional fireworks show. So we're like, okay, that's cool. So, same crew, me, Bree, and Jerry drive up, and we, get everything set up. It's like in this guy's pole barn, big metal barn, big stage. I mean, it's nice setup. And we're all just, hanging out, and, everybody brings all their family up and wives and whatnot. And so, designated time, we go to play, we start playing, we're sounding fairly good. We're halfway through our third song, I think it was the third song, which was Highway Star by Deep Purple, song I've always loved, always wanted to play. Finally got a chance to play it. Halfway through, we're kicking ass. We see Moni, Pico's wife, run towards the stage, signaling at Cam. And Cam kind of looks down and said, "What? I don't hear what they're saying. All I know is Cam jumps off stage and bolts away." And we're like, okay. So we kind of stopped playing. And it's just one of those things where it's like, what's going on? And the party kind of comes to a halt, and I'm like, okay, something obviously is up. And we kind of wander around. I think Jerry eventually goes down there and to try to suss it out. And word gets back that Cam's dog had been hit by a car. Which, absolutely tragic. Absolutely, not a good situation in any way, shape, or form. But, we're just like, okay, so I suppose that means we're done and we should just, pack her up and whatever. And we're just hanging out, and, I'm hanging out with Bree, and we're talking and whatnot, and it's been, half hour, 45 minutes at this point, and we're just like, okay, I guess we're done. Might as well start packing up. And I see Cam come up the driveway, out of the darkness, bottle in his hand, big bottle of Windsor, which him and Jerry apparently had drunk most of, with this look of determination on his face. And he walked by us and he says, "I need to play, I need to scream, I need to sing." And we were like, okay, let's do it. So, got up, we somehow made it through the rest of the first set, somewhat coherently. So we're like, okay. And then as we start the second set, it's clear that things are quickly falling apart. And we're like, okay. So we kind of stumble through part of it, and we're like, okay, we're done. We're at that point, I mean, it's just not working. It's everybody's, Cam is grieving in his own way, and everything is just not good. I mean, the vibe there is not good. So, in that environment, it's like, okay, but now we have the fireworks show. We're like, okay, maybe that'll not cheer people up, but it'll, maybe work some magic. And I gotta say, to see a professional fireworks display literally right in front of you, not from a distance, but literally right on top of you, is pretty freaking awesome. I know that doesn't come around a lot, but if you had the chance, do it, because it is quite breathtaking. So that's all done. We're like, okay, we should probably just, get some sleep, because, we got all this crap to deal with in the morning. So me and Bree were assigned kind of a trailer, and we go in there and we lay down on the benches, and what we didn't know was that apparently that's where Cam was sleeping too, and we tried to go in there and go to sleep real quick. Couldn't go to sleep fast enough. And again, Cam, I'm sorry. But so he came in, and it was the hardest secondhand emotional moment I think I've ever felt in my life. I mean, the pain that this man felt. Oh, sorry. Before that, after we stumbled to the ground, second set, Pico packed up because him and Moni had a hotel somewhere. So they packed up and they went to the hotel. Cam, in his very, very drunk state, came up to me, grabbed my shirt, and said, "I need one more set. And I'm like, dude, we're done. Pico's at the hotel. There's nothing we can do." And he was just like a madman. And understandably, again, but everybody has their own way of dealing with stuff, and this was his. And he just kind of, dropped his hands, it kind of huffed, wandered off, and I was like, okay, hopefully we're done with that. So then, later on in the trailer, it was him alternating, just bawling his eyes out, and just being pissed, and every emotion, every negative emotion, just coming to the surface and bubbling over, and just, it was so incredibly intense and so incredibly heart-wrenching and frightening at the same time. It was, again, the most intense secondhand emotional experience I think I've ever experienced. Eventually, after about an hour of this, Candace, his wife, eventually just said, "Okay, we're just gonna go. We're just gonna go," and they left. And I mean, that was that for now. But so obviously, turn on the next day, go home, whatever, blah, blah. And we don't really talk about it. In fact, I think we were advised not to even mention the word Wolfstock to him for at least the next couple months, because who knows? I mean, it was that traumatic, and again, it's understandable, but oh my God, I'd never experienced anything like that before, and it was absolutely just gut-wrenching. So we carry on, we soldier on. Next gig is we play Pico. Grew up on the res in northern Wisconsin, so we go up there. I don't remember the name of the casino. I apologize. To play his niece's, I think, college graduation party. I think it was something like that. But like, casino ballroom, like full on, like we brought in somebody else to do sound, like an actual like professional sound guy, and all this. It was nicest setup we've had, I think. And that show, Cam was off on that one too. I'm not exactly sure what he was ingesting, but that was just an off night. Great setup, not a huge crowd, but a very nice receptive crowd, but just an off night. So those are the first 3 shows that I'm in with this band, and I'm like, I don't know about this. It's kind of, I mean, we'll see what happens, but needless to say, I don't think we play that many shows after that. I think we play, I mean, there's some lineup changes. Anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So, about a year into this, and I don't know where these shows took place, if they took place within 2014 or in 2015, but right around March of 2015, so a year and a month after I joined, Jerry comes in to practice one day, and he's kind of nervous, and I can tell. He's like, I have to tell you guys something, but I don't know how to do it or whatever. And I was like, we got there before Cam and Pico got there, so I was just like, just tell me and we'll figure it out. And he was like, I joined another band. Just as a side thing, I'm not leaving SMUJ'D, I just joined another band. And at that point, I was like, half jokingly said, well, are they looking for a drummer? And he, in all seriousness, said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, they are. And that band was a little band called Outlaw Saint. So I think that night, because he came in, the other guy showed up, and Jerry told them, and they didn't seem to have any reaction. They were just like, okay, whatever you gotta do, dude. Because Outlaw Saint is an original band, and Jerry was kind of wanting to get away from covers and do more of an original thing, and flex his creative muscle and all that. And then I told him, so it was that night Jerry gave me a ride home. He actually called Tank, who's the architect. I think that's the only way to describe Tank, is the architect of Outlaw Saint. And so he called Tank and talked to him and said, I've got my drummer with me, and we set up the audition right then and there, and it was like a week later or whatever. So I don't know, I think it was the Wednesday before the next Saturday's SMUJ'D practice. So Jerry picked me up, and we went over to guitar player Ed's house. Who was actually didn't live all that far from me. He just lived over on like 6610 or something like that, over south. So meet Tank. Tank is definitely a character. He is what he is, and that's all that he is, kind of like Popeye. He definitely has a certain image, a certain look, a certain sound for this band in mind. Always has, turns out. So we get there, and I meet Tank, and I meet Ed, the guitar player, and I meet the bass player, introduced just to me as D-Man. So I was like, okay, sat down, and or maybe it was longer than a week. No, maybe than a week. But I had, I think, watched some of the videos and stuff, so I knew some of the songs. So I was able to audition from that, and then they eventually got me the songs. Because I got that audition too. So now me and Jerry are both in 2 bands. So it's like, okay, cool, 2 bands. We can do this. Getting out there. And about 3 weeks, I think, after I joined Outlaw Saint, they've got a show at what used to be called Pickle Park, which now recently reopened as Route 47. I think that's Route 47. And it's a battle of the bands. So I was like, okay, I guess, we'll play the show. And so played the show. Again, played fairly well, I guess. But side note, at that show is also 2 other bands that I meet, and they may come into play later. One is a band called Half Moon Devil, who are, side note, awesome, and if they play shows, you should go see them because they're really, really good. The other band competing was a band called Castor Velour. They're also really good in a different way. They're how do I describe Castor Galore? They're an 80s glam band. That is absolutely what they are. They're an 80s glam band with a little bit, a little as pretty as Poison on the first album, but a little bit more early Motley Crue Wasp, I think would be, but really, you know, songs with a lot of melody and stuff. I mean, they're good. They're good too. They put on a great show as well, and really nice guys. So that was me kind of cluing in. Oh, I mean, I always knew there was a local scene, obviously playing in Stupid Jerk, playing with all these bands, but this kind of reintroduced me to the local scene that I had missed out on in the last, 10 years, 20 years, however long it had been. And this was a battle of the bands before an open mic run by a guy called Marcus Leary, who is not only one of the nicest guys I've ever met, but one of the hardest working musicians I've ever met. We'll get into him later. But he used to host this open mic at Pickle Park every Tuesday, Wednesday. And so Battle of the Bands is part of that. We did not win that Battle of the Bands. Half Moon Devil, I think, actually won that Battle of the Bands. I don't remember what the prize was. But I think just a couple weeks after that, or maybe a month after that, so we're talking like April, I went in to record with Outlaw Saint because they had won before. They had won some studio time. So we went to this guy named Max Lewis's house. Max Lewis, guy's name is Max Lewis. We went to his house in St. Paul. He has a studio in the basement. And we recorded the 9 original songs that Outlaw Saint had. And, got the basic tracks done in a day. I think they came back the next day to do overdubs and vocals. And within, 4 days, we had it recorded. That was an album called Never Saw It Coming. I want to say, Tank, you're going to crucify me there. But, so recorded that. And, started booking not a bunch of shows, but a few shows. I mean, we played the Terminal a couple times. We played, I think, Club Underground. We played, where else did we play? No, we didn't play Driftwood. I don't remember where else we played, but started booking shows because